On today's show, Mavs rumor. Daniel Gafford and the Mavericks have agreed to a contract extension, and yet we still know nothing about whether they're going to keep him or if they intend to trade him. We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs. Stop it! Let's go! Stop! The number one pick will go to the Dallas Mavericks. Cooper Flagg will fly in Dallas.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs, your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave.
Your team every day.
I'm gonna get a city like that.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being in every day, making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Joining me, as always, my co-host, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years, right alongside me, the Gafford guy, the one more thing king. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
The landlord says the rent is due. He's ready, and the landlord is a little bit richer, at least for long-term money. Happy for him. Good job, Daniel Gafford. Secure that bag.
Happy for Daniel Gafford. We're going to talk about his extension. We're going to talk about what the extension means for a bunch of parties involved for the Dallas Mavericks. For the centers, for the Mavs trade options, for PJ Washington, for Cooper Flagg even. And then I want to talk about where Nico's head is at potentially with this deal. But let's start here. According to Shams Charania, the Mavs and Daniel Gafford intends to sign a 3-year, almost nearly $60 million, he says. And we go, okay, interesting. But Isaac, you looked at it and said 3 years, that perked your ears up. Why?
Yeah, I mean, it's just when you have a player that can go 4 years, anytime it's a little like less than that for a player extension wise, my ears perk up because then it's like, all right, because there's a couple of these things that once you hit a few of these things, like if they go the full 4 years, or you go a certain dollar amount over, because then you start getting into like, there's that first year of the deal that's like 120%, but it's more about those like 5% raises. And it made my ears perk up whenever it was like, hey, 3 years. And I was like, are they going to keep him? Are they gonna keep this to where he's still going to be able to be traded? And then it wasn't until Mark Stein said the 54 number, and I was like, oh, they did this on purpose so he's still trade eligible.
And so that number, it being 3 years and specifically $54 million a year, means that this extension for Daniel Gafford, in contrast to other extensions, usually an extension, like you said, if it's around a certain amount of years and dollars, if it goes up the 5% raises and all that, then it usually means the player cannot be traded for 6 months. So immediately when you see extension, I even texted to the text line people like, hey, looks like he can't be traded for 6 months. He can be traded in December, I guess. And then we get the clarification that it's $54 million. We get the clarification that it's specifically the number that's just below the number that makes him still eligible to be traded. So for anybody that's like, wow, they signed him to a contract, that means they're keeping Daniel Gafford. It does not mean that. It actually means we know less about the Daniel Gafford thing, because it's either one of two things. One of them, let's start with this one. The Mavs have invested in center, and the Mavs are saying, all right, we're keeping Daniel Gafford around. We want to keep Daniel Gafford with Dereck Lively, with Anthony Davis. Shams Charania's report specifically mentioned those two guys and Cooper Flagg, saying this is the front court for the Dallas Mavericks. They've built this core that they want to have their team build around. We know Nico Harrison wants to have size and wants to have size next to Anthony Davis because Anthony Davis wants to play the 4. And so, yeah, got to have Lively and Gafford there. And that's just the Mavs would have incredible size, probably the best front court in the NBA next season with those 4, if you consider all 4 of them. You have to maybe think through that one a second. Maybe Cleveland. You start thinking through it. Maybe Denver.
I don't know. It's pretty good. I mean, especially if you want to throw PJ in there also.
True, which Shams did not. So we'll talk about him. But I think, so if the Mavs are doing that, we just take the deal at face value, then it seems like the Mavs are investing in center. And it's what kind of a deal for Gafford would you think that is? It's about $18 million a year for Daniel Gafford. That'd be about 10% of the salary cap next season. Not this season coming up, but the season after that.
Yeah. One, I want to point out of like, hey, what could he have gotten? He could have gotten the 4-year number, which is around like that $90 million. So if he got the 4-year extension, he got the full $90 million, it would be the 6 month. Like it would trigger all of that. But instead, it's 3 year 54. I was like, not only is it still trade eligible, but it was like, I honestly love it all the way around. I think, yeah, I did. I thought it was a great move for Dallas because one, you start looking at the number, and I immediately started comparing it to, like, I thought Daniel Gafford's number was going to be 22, 23, like somewhere in that range, whatever his next contract is for whatever his next team was. And that's why I was like, we've kind of naturally thrown him out there in some of these trade scenarios because it's like, all right, you're going to invest like $25 million a year to Daniel Gafford because he deserves it. Like he's a good center in the league. I think he is a really good starting center. And so like once that number came in and I was like, all right, you're talking about Jakob Poeltl number. You're talking about a Nurkic, Zach Collins. Like, I think he's better than. I think he's right there with Jakob Poeltl. Like, and then you start looking at a few guys above him, like Hartenstein's at 28, like Nick Claxton's at 25. Miles Turner's about to get 30, and he was making 19 this past season. So, I don't think he's like the same as like Miles Turner, but still, it's like, is there a $12 million difference between Miles Turner and Daniel Gafford? I guess because Turner can like hit threes, but it's still, I just think it was a good number all the way around. And you have like, I think you made your trade asset even better by locking him in long term. But also if you did keep him, I thought the number was a good number too. So I liked it.
That's the thing is the Mavs are either investing in center that I just mentioned, or they're investing in a centerpiece of a trade because Daniel Gafford.
Ooh, I see what you did there.
Let's go. Turn of phrase, professional over here. The Mavs have now he's a more desirable trade chip if he's got a 4-year deal than if he's an expiring contract. You send him to a Chicago or a Washington or wherever, a Brooklyn. Yeah. And those teams would much rather him be on a 4-year deal than on a 1-year deal where they have to figure out the contract after that and hope and just pray that he likes it there enough, a place that he probably didn't decide to go to himself, that he would want to stay there and do that. And so he is still tradable. And it kind of seems to me, if you make this decision and you sign him to this deal that's just exactly under the number to be traded, that it does seem to me that they intend to trade him. That's what I look at it as.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how those negotiations went of, back and forth, the timing of it, because you think of it too. Let's say you did go the 4 years. Let's say you did do the 90 million, at
which
that
would be
4
about
year.
22.5 million a year, which is what you were thinking earlier.
Yeah. So even if he did do that and the 6 months was triggered, you're just talking about December. Like,
yeah, right.
You're just a month and a half into the season. Like you're still a good, if you look at, I guess it would be towards the end of December, a few days before Christmas.
Like
so
6 weeks before the trade deadline.
Yeah. It's not even like you see some of those like extensions get done at these deadlines where it's like, all right, it happened right there to where he's still trade eligible at like February 6th, the deadline. There's one day that they can be traded.
Wasn't there a guy that had one day to be traded and got traded in the NBA a couple years ago? I
think it could be something like that. So, but that's the thing is like, it wasn't just hey, let's extend him. And then, we have plenty of time to trade him like in the regular season. They wanted to get him signed right now at that number for a reason. And I think it does when you look at the trade landscape type of stuff. I think it does. You look at a team like Boston, and Boston wants to clear money going forward. Yeah. So I think it kind of eliminates like him ending up in a Boston situation because like their whole purpose of breaking up their core is like, you're going to get some expirings to get some money off your books long term. And so I don't think he's like an option if he ever was in like a Boston trade now or a team that's like trying to save money. But it's those situations that you were mentioning of, the Atlantas or Washingtons or Chicago's or whatever, that's like, hey, we'll trade for him if he's like locked up and he like locked up in like long-term money. And it just felt weird. And like,
not a KCP situation.
Yeah. And because then you have him, for the next, 4 years.
The locked up Mavs.
Locked up Mavs.
Coming up, let's get into what this means for Gafford himself, for the Mavs trade options, and the Mavs centers. I think this does something for the Mavs centers. We'll talk about that and more coming up on today's Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch Money is great because there are so many different things that just pull your money in a bunch of different directions. You're paying for stuff. You're paying for subscriptions. Stuff gets auto-drafted out of that. One of the best things that's happened is you can auto-pay bills. My mom used to have to sit and like send a letter to every single bill thing she wanted to pay. Oh my gosh, what a waste of time. So now we don't have to do that anymore. But that means your money's going all different kinds of places. You need something to help you organize all that, to figure out what's going on with your money. Monarch Money, it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, spending, investments all in one place so you stop managing your money and start building wealth. The all-in-one convenience is awesome. You don't have to juggle multiple apps. You can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, even plan long-term goals. Take the control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use that code LOCKEDONNBA. That's all in word, LOCKEDONNBA. At Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Also brought to you by Open Phone. If you're a small business owner or you've got some kind of business where you use a phone system, you know that you cannot miss a single client. You can't miss a customer. You cannot miss anybody that wants to take part. Just like us, we try not to miss a single listener ever that comes through these doors of this show. Open Phone will help you to not miss any clients or any people. Open Phone is the number one business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. The shared inbox feature is a game changer for you. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. Open Phone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. Open Phone, openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have any existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad. That's what we call our listeners, listening every day. We appreciate each and every one of you. We've got a text line, 214-643-8637. You probably heard of the Daniel Gafford extension before all of your friends because we texted it to you right there. And I was wrong about one thing, but then I corrected it immediately and then I gave you my thoughts on it. And so if you want to get rumors like that, if you want to ask us questions, get Q&As, Isaac did one this weekend, all kinds of stuff like that, go check out that number. And there's a link in the description if you want to do it there as well. All right, Isaac Harris. I'm still laughing about Slightly and his leg yesterday. Every time you mentioned his leg in his cast, he would stick his leg up in the air.
I felt for him, man. That's just be a sucky feeling.
Even talking
afterwards. I know. Even talking afterwards, he's like, "Yep, this is pretty much what I do every day." I'm like, oh man.
I was thinking about like inviting him to go to Summer League with us, and I was like, oh wait.
No.
Maybe if we scoot him, or maybe if he brings a scooter and we scoot him around. Maybe we can get to the front of the lines of stuff. Like at Disney, you get to the front of the line.
Get a handicap tag.
One year, my grandma was in a wheelchair for she had a leg issue, and we got to the front of the line every single time at Disney World, and it was awesome.
I had a buddy in college who had surgery on his leg, and he got a handicap tag for his little Volkswagen, and we piled about 10 dudes in that car, parked front row at Walmart. That's really bad. I know we shouldn't do that.
Just to get like 10 feet closer.
I know. It was more of like whoa, never parked here before. We thought we were so cool.
Daniel Gafford is intending to sign this extension. It's the 3 years, the $54 million, which is exactly the number that would be needed in order to keep that contract extension trade eligible. And so he can still be traded. And so for Daniel Gafford, let's talk about what that means for him. For Daniel Gafford, some financial security. Before this extension, how much do you think Daniel Gafford's made? Career salary, Daniel Gafford, including this year coming up.
I have no clue. I can't remember what his last deal was.
His largest amount that he's going to make is this year. It's $14 million.
$60 million.
$46 million he's made, including this season coming up. And so this doubles the money that he's made. So like you said at the top, congrats to him. He's earned this. I think he's been really great for the Mavericks. We've been clear this whole time. We've talked about trading him. It seems like we want to trade him every single day, but he's been great. He's been a steady presence for the Mavericks. He's been a really good guy that you can throw the ball down and get a bucket every once in a while. Obviously a great pick and roll partner and been great as a lob threat. He's been great as a rim protector on defense specifically. And there's been just some really good things that he's helped this Mavericks team do and stay afloat and all those kind of things. And so I think he's absolutely earned this deal.
Yeah, no, for sure. He has his weaknesses too, right? I mean, he gets out on a switch. He can get blown by on that, but I wouldn't say he has the best hands in the world for a big, especially for rebounds and stuff. But like you listed all the great things that he does, and it's what a lot of good starting centers do. One of the things I do want to talk about with well, never mind. You have it for the third segment, so I'll wait.
Go ahead, bring it now.
No, I feel like there was immediately when it hit, it was oh my gosh, we're investing into like this huge front court. And it's like, we have Anthony Davis at this huge number. We have Daniel Gafford at this number. We have Lively. My mind initially went there too. I was like, all right, Gafford's probably going to come off the bench. But I think it's just like, hold up a second and look at the actual numbers, because Lively makes $5 million this year. Then next year, we still haven't had another at like $7 million. So we're a couple years away from signing Dereck Lively to a bigger deal. And so it's like, all right, it really doesn't look that bad when you look at it that way of saying, all right, yeah, you got the big number with Anthony Davis, but then you have a $20 million center and then a $7 million center. Like, it's just not as bad as what I think people initially look at it as, and be like, oh my gosh, we've invested so much into these three. It's like, no, that's so I say that to say, if they do keep him, I'm fine with it. Like at that number, cool. Like I'm okay with it. So I think he fits great with the team. And now I think you could have the debate of like, without Luka and all the stuff of what he does well and how he gets maximized and all the stuff, having two guys like a Gafford and Lively, but for his number and what he does, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, that is going to be an interesting thing for sure to see how that works. But we've talked about playmakers, and we hope that they add another pick and roll playmaker that they can add to this team. I think him and Cooper Flagg are going to have some good chemistry moments too. Cooper Flagg's run a lot of pick and roll in college as well. And we already saw the chemistry between him and Anthony Davis, like the first play of the 15 minutes that Anthony Davis played now. no. God, it makes me so sad where it's like, even that first game of Anthony Davis, we couldn't get the whole game. Like, man, last season was so cursed in such a way.
Wild year. It's over. It's over.
Insane. It's kind of over.
But also looking at
I think what? to your point about the centers and investing in the centers for this season, Gafford's making 14. Dereck Lively's making 5. You're paying less than what the Bulls are paying for Vucevic. Next year, you're even with the extension and with Dereck Lively, he's got that that team option that they're going to pick up, $7 million. You're paying less than what the Thunder are paying for Isaiah Hartenstein. He played a big role and then didn't really close a lot of their games either, right? Like, and they're paying $30 million for a guy that didn't close. And so you think about, all right, what are you really investing in? This Mavs team does need to prove they can win in the regular season, and Gafford is a great regular season center for sure. And you've got to win there first. They didn't win enough there this year, and you saw where they ended up.
Yeah. So to go back to your trade point too, they did do this 2 days before the draft. Yeah. So much stuff is flying around right now. Kyrie Irving, the decision on his player option is coming up tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Monday night,
yeah, big one.
Which is a big one there. I mean, he can opt out, sign a new deal in free agency that a lot of people expect. He could opt in and keep that number at a pretty higher number, like that 43 number, and sign an extension on top of that. So there's a couple different options. I don't know what some of those raises and stuff would look like for an extension for Kyrie if he opted in, but there's just a couple different routes that they could go with it. The best team friendly thing to happen would be, hey, Kyrie opts out, signs that 2+1 deal, and you get him under 40 million that first year to save you some money, get under the apron, open up an exception, give you a little bit more flexibility, but tack on the extra, the rest of the money later on in those next 2 years after that. But
and we should mention Kyrie Irving was on NBA TV before the finals, before Game 7, and he said it's an exciting time to be a Dallas Mavericks fan. And I, basically like I love being a Maverick, exciting for the Mavs and the Mavs fans and all that. And talking about himself as a Maverick. So like Stein has been reported, there is no scenario where he's not going to be a Maverick next season. It's just on what kind of deal he does decide. And like,
listen, if you've been listening to this podcast, I can't tell you how many times we sat there and said he's going to be back. Everything that I've heard and everything is like, yeah, we've just been pumping that that or hitting that drum, whatever you want to say.
You pump a drum. You could pump a drum.
Pump that drum.
Pump that drum.
pump that drum.
Pump that drum. Coming up, let's get into what this means for PJ Washington. What is it? Where's Nico's head's at when we got this deal going right now? What does it mean for the centers as well? We can get into that and more. Let's get into that coming up. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. They recently talked about they have the odds to win the conferences next season. We talked about those on game night, which I am on today. And the Mavs plus 2,000 to win the West. Isaac, here are the teams that are above the Mavs right now. Thunder, okay, plus 130. Rockets, okay, they just got Kevin Durant. Timberwolves, okay, they just made the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. Lakers plus 850, okay, Lakers bump. Nuggets plus 950, okay, they have Jokic. Clippers plus 1,300. Warriors plus 1,600. Spurs plus 1,600. Mavs plus 2,000. Those are all the teams that are ahead of the Mavs to win the West next season.
Interesting. Clippers over Dallas.
Yeah,
that's the one I have the biggest issue with.
Clippers is an interesting one. So if you feel strongly about one of those, you can put down $5. If it's your first $5, you get $150 in bonus bets. If that first $5 bet wins, go to FanDuel.com, download the app, check that out. Go to FanDuel.com and check that out. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Please gamble responsibly.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Isaac, we're talking about what this Daniel Gafford extension means for the Dallas Mavericks. We just talked about Kyrie and his potential extension coming up on Tuesday. If you're listening to this, that's today. He decides on his player option if he's going to turn it down or activate it. I like how Stein the other day about Dwight Powell's contract said he's activating his player option, not like picking it up.
Yeah, I love that. It felt like Woj on like a draft night, I don't know, 8 years ago.
Lasered in.
Yeah, they were lasered in on this.
He's activating his player option. What does the Daniel Gafford extension mean for the Mavs centers, for Lively and Anthony Davis specifically? If, let's say, they keep him.
Well, I mean, it gives you depth. I mean, everybody needs depth right now, especially, I mean, how many, for all the reasons that so many people have yelled us in our comments of like, why you hate Gafford? It's not that, but the reasons that a lot of people like will shout at us is we have injury prone and Anthony Davis and Dereck Lively that can never stay on the floor. Gafford does. It's like, yes, all the points are true. So
we agree with them.
Yeah. It's like, yes, I understand that. So it's like, yeah, you get depth at the center spot. How many teams across the league are looking for a Daniel Gafford type of player? That's why it's like, I don't think it's a biased thing to say that if they wanted to trade Daniel Gafford for a draft pick, you can get a first-round draft pick for Daniel Gafford. And I firmly believe that. So I just think so many teams out there want a Daniel Gafford. They're looking for a starting center of that caliber. And you always need that size. So, I don't know. Yeah, size does matter.
Do rebounds matter?
Rebounds matter too.
It's interesting for these centers. If they trade him, then it means the centers have to step up, and Anthony Davis has to play center more. And I'm still considering them trading him because that contract is exactly the number that it would take to still be trade eligible. So that means to me, where Nico's head could be at is he's either just keeping options open, like he got his cake and ate it too a little bit with this one. He got Gafford at a deal that he may want to stay at and keep him here, and then he could also trade him too. You could do both. Yeah,
so like that's the part that I'd fascinated to hear from like Gafford's side of they're not dumb. They know where this number came from. It's not just like, oh, what about 54? Do y'all like 54? We love that number. And it's like, what? I like they know what's happening, what it makes possible for him. So he probably knows that there's a reason to that. And hey, what does this look like? I mean, heck, we could have a trade in the next 24 hours, for all we know, before the draft and stuff. So there's stuff they can do on draft night to get back into the draft. There's stuff that they can package the stuff together to go get, a guard out there. We talked about Colin Sexton the other day. There's just different guys. I mean, Kobe White, I just think is just too much slightly. And I talked about it on yesterday's podcast about like kind of towards the end of like, two first and other things. Like I think because it was our Locked On Bulls guys, right, that reported or talked about the deal
They got
that
it from
Chicago.
somewhere else, but the Locked On Bulls got aggregated.
Oh, okay. Either way, that if they turn down that deal from Orlando, I mean that's a good little haul for Kobe White, and I don't think Dallas should get close to that. So, yeah, fascinating. I think looking at PJ Washington, so PJ is eligible right now to sign a 4-year, like $89-90 million deal. So that's like the most he can sign right now as an extension. If he signed that 6 months, that would be triggered and all of that. But he could also sign like a Daniel Gafford type of deal. I personally think he probably won't do that because I think PJ is better than $18 million a year. I think he's into the 20s at this point in his career and how well he's played in Dallas. So I'm curious. That's something I'm watching too. What will the reporting say of like, hey, they approached PJ about an extension, but he wants to ride this out into free agents because he thinks he can get more money because he's going to be expiring contract. Do they treat it kind of like Quentin Grimes to where it's like, hey, here's the number we want to pay you. And if he's like, no, I don't want that for my extension, then it's like, all right, well, you're on the trade block. So kind of like what happened with Quentin Grimes and stuff. I'm just monitoring that. Right now, if PJ would take 4 years, $89 million, $88 million, sign me up. Do it. 6 months trade, ineligible, whatever it is, like all of that. Like sign me up. I'd do that.
They are set up in an interesting way right now because they still have Lively under $5 million this year, $7 million the next year. So like you still have like 2 this year and next year to try and like, all right, let's see what this core does, and then we can make the decision later and trade them then, right? We don't have to deal with this issue until then. And maybe even by then, I mean, I don't know what will happen with Clay. Maybe that money's off the books and then it doesn't look as bad. The whole salary cap in general doesn't look as bad. We don't know what number Kyrie's going to sign at. And so all those things are factors into all this. What does this mean for Cooper Flagg? Anything?
I just think we got to see how it plays out. As far as like roster building wise, but I don't think PJ has more of an impact on Cooper than the others. Because, Flagg, I think Cooper Flagg's natural position is like a 4. Yeah. I'd love to see him at a 4 spot at some point, but AD is pretty committed to that. So yeah, I don't think a Gafford thing, you always want a big, or at least I think you should always want a big at this point in Cooper Flagg's career and stuff. Maybe there's a path down the road that you're running a Cooper at the 5, really fast paced type of thing, but not right now. You need bigs.
Yeah, and so you have one. We mentioned earlier that the pick and roll stuff that he'll have a lob threat. He was good with a lob threat in college, and so now he'll have one all the time with Anthony Davis, Lively, and Gafford. One of those guys will always be on the court for the Mavericks when they're all healthy.
Yeah, and I want to see the money part of this. That's something I'm just watching all of it. Of they got to get under, they got to I think they're operating over the second apron at this point, where they're right at that number. They got to get under that. Whether they do that through dumping a Gafford's contract into that Atlanta trade exception, or Brooklyn, or whatever it is, or they make a trade to shed some money. Whether they do that with Kyrie's next contract, if he opts out in that new deal and all the things, that first year is less than 40, and they try to make that money up that way somehow. They don't have to, but there's really no reason when you're this close, and you got these different ways to get under, because once you get under, then you open up another exception and you can go out and have a little bit more than that minimum contract. So that's what I'm watching right now with this Gafford thing.
This extension kind of only opened up one more option for the Mavericks, because they could still trade him, right? They could keep him, but they could also keep him longer, right? It's not an expiring contract anymore. And so it just, the option to keep him for a longer period of time is the only thing that kind of opened up with this. That's really the only thing that changed. That's why I opened the show with, like, we still don't know exactly what their intentions are with Gafford, because they could keep him, or this deal could be very specific because they have a deal ready, and that could be it.
I think it opens up the amount of suitors that
I
could
agree.
trade for him.
That's a very good point. Yeah. We kind of made that point earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, like you look at a team like the Lakers, who probably would love to have him. I think that they would probably be more willing to make the trade that you'd have to do to get it, Daniel Gafford, knowing that, hey, well, he's locked in long term. He's not just that's why I took Boston kind of out of it, because they would probably just view it as an expiring contract. Well, you can't be viewed as like an expiring contract anymore. So I just think it opens up the suitors. I think you even like some of the, sorry guys, sucky teams out there.
You're apologizing to them.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sorry, guys. But even like, I mean, you mentioned like Washington earlier, different team, even though he came from Washington. It's just like even the sucky teams could trade for him now without the fear of, all right, well, we suck. We're probably going to suck next year, and then he's just going to like walk for nothing. Mm-hmm. No, I think it just opens up so many different teams now that could trade for him.
Interesting. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube, socials, at Locked On Mavs, everywhere. Let us know what you think this Gafford extension means. We'll be back tomorrow with more Cooper Flagg draft preview stuff. I'll be in New York tomorrow where I'm going to the draft. We're going to see what happens there, see if I get to talk to Cooper Flagg or not. And we'll have draft content all throughout draft day as well. So stick back, subscribe, wherever you're listening, watching this. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.
It's great. It's great, dude. Dude, it's great.